There comes a moment in life when you get tired, not physically, but internally. Tired of explaining yourself, tired of proving your worth, tired of being overlooked, underestimated, and misunderstood. And in that moment, something powerful begins to shift inside you. You start realizing that the energy you've been giving to others was always meant for you. That your greatest transformation will never come from impressing people. It will come from investing in yourself. And when you finally make that decision, when you truly decide to focus on yourself, something extraordinary happens. You don't have to announce your growth. People will feel it. And that is how you shock everyone. You see, most people are distracted. Distracted by comparison, by noise, by opinions, by the need for validation. They are so busy watching others that they forget to build themselves. But the moment you turn your attention inward, the moment you start working on your mind, your discipline, your purpose, you separate yourself from the crowd instantly. Because focus is rare. Real focus is uncommon. And uncommon people create uncommon results. When you focus on yourself, you begin to understand that your life is your responsibility. Not your past, not your environment, not the people who doubted you. Your life is shaped by what you choose to do with what you have. And that realization is dangerous in the best way. Because now excuses lose their power. Now procrastination has no place to hide. Now you become intentional. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot lead if you cannot manage yourself. You cannot rise if you are constantly scattered. So you begin to build quietly, consistently. You start waking up with purpose. You start controlling your habits. You start saying no to things that drain you and yes to things that develop you. And while others are talking, you are working. While others are watching, you are growing. And here is the truth. People will not notice you at first. In fact, they might ignore you. They might even doubt your change. But that's the process. Because real growth does not scream, it shows. Day by day, your mindset sharpens. Your confidence builds. Your discipline strengthens. And then one day, the same people who overlooked you will look again. But this time, they won't recognize you. That's the shock. But the shock is not in noise. It's in results. It's in the way you carry yourself. It's in the way you speak with clarity and move with intention. It's in the consistency they never thought you had. It's in the transformation they didn't see coming because they were too busy watching the old version of you. But understand this, your journey is not about shocking others. That's just a byproduct. The real victory is who you become in the process. A person who no longer seeks approval. A person who no longer waits for permission. A person who understands their value and refuses to settle for less. When you focus on yourself, you develop vision. And vision gives your life direction. Without it, you drift. With it, you move with purpose. You stop wasting time on meaningless distractions because you understand that every moment is an investment. You begin to think long term. You begin to act with intention. You begin to align your daily habits with your future goals. And let me tell you something powerful. Consistency will take you places motivation never will. Anyone can feel inspired for a moment. Anyone can start, but not everyone can continue. Not everyone can stay committed when it gets hard, when it gets boring, when no one is clapping. That's where focus separates you. That's where discipline defines you. You must train your mind to stay locked in because your mind is your greatest asset, but it can also be your biggest distraction if you don't control it. Feed it with growth. Protect it from negativity. Guard your time. Be selective with your energy. Not everything deserves your attention. And as you grow, you will notice something else. Your circle will change. Not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you're becoming different. Your priorities shift. Your standards rise. Your tolerance for mediocrity disappears. And that's okay. Growth requires separation. You cannot evolve and stay the same at the same time. So you keep going, even when it's quiet, even when it's hard, even when no one understands. Because you understand something they don't. You're building something real, something lasting, something that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in purpose. And one day the results will speak so loudly that explanations will no longer be necessary. The discipline you built in silence will show in your success. The focus you maintained when no one was watching will manifest in ways that cannot be ignored. That's how you shock everyone. Not by talking, not by announcing, but by becoming. So focus on yourself. Build yourself. Develop yourself. Because at the end of the day, the greatest project you will ever work on is you. There is a powerful shift that happens the moment you decide to redirect your energy inward. It doesn't come with noise, it doesn't come with applause, and it certainly doesn't come with immediate recognition, but it comes with something far greater: control. Most people go through life unconsciously spending their energy on things that do not build them. They spend it on opinions, on comparison, on trying to be seen, on trying to be accepted, on trying to prove a point to people who are not even thinking about them. And in doing so, they slowly drain the very resource that could have transformed their lives, their focus. You must understand this. Your energy is your currency. Every thought you think, every action you take, every conversation you engage in is an investment. The question is not whether you are investing, it is where you are investing. And many people are bankrupt, not because they lack potential, but because they have been investing in the wrong places for too long. Redirecting your energy inward begins with awareness. You start noticing how much of your time has been spent reacting instead of creating. Reacting to criticism, reacting to social media, reacting to what others are doing. You realize that you have been living in response mode instead of intention mode. And the moment you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. You begin to feel a quiet frustration, not with others, but with yourself. Not a destructive frustration, but a constructive one. The kind that pushes you to say, enough is enough. I will no longer waste my life trying to win approval when I could be building value. Because here is the truth. People will always have opinions. They will talk whether you are doing well or doing nothing. They will judge whether you rise or remain the same. So, if their voices are constant, why should your direction depend on them? Why should your effort be dictated by external noise when your purpose is internal? The moment you detach from the need to be understood by everyone, you free yourself to become who you were designed to be. Redirecting your energy inward is not about isolation from the world. It is about alignment with yourself. It is about asking deeper questions. Who am I becoming? What am I building? What habits are shaping my future? These questions shift your focus from temporary validation to long-term transformation. And transformation requires attention, consistent, deliberate attention. You begin to take ownership of your mornings. Instead of waking up and immediately checking what the world is doing, you start checking yourself. You ask, what do I need to do today to move forward? That simple shift changes everything. Because now your day is not driven by distraction, it is driven by purpose. You start feeding your mind with things that grow you instead of things that entertain you. You start valuing your time differently. You realize that every hour wasted is a piece of your future given away for nothing. And let's be honest, this is not easy because the world is designed to pull your attention outward. Everything around you is competing for your focus. Notifications, opinions, trends, comparisons, they are all trying to capture your energy. And if you are not intentional, you will become a consumer of life instead of a creator of it. But when you make the decision to redirect your energy inward, you begin to resist that pull. Not perfectly, but consistently. You start to notice your habits. The small things you used to ignore suddenly become important. How you spend your time, how you respond to challenges, how you talk to yourself. Because you understand that your external results are a reflection of your internal patterns. Change the pattern and you change the outcome. Redirecting your energy inward also means confronting yourself. And this is where most people hesitate. Because it is easier to blame than it is to take responsibility. It is easier to point outward than to look inward. But growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in honesty. You have to be willing to admit where you have been inconsistent, where you have been distracted, where you have been settling. Not to shame yourself, but to empower yourself. Because once you acknowledge it, you can change it. You begin to replace excuses with actions. Instead of saying, I don't have time, you start asking, where am I wasting time? And instead of saying, I can't do this, you start asking, what can I learn to make this possible? That shift in thinking is powerful because now you are no longer a victim of your circumstances. You are a student of your potential. And something else begins to happen as you redirect your energy inward. You become less reactive. You stop getting pulled into every argument, every opinion, every distraction. You realize that not everything deserves your response. Some things deserve your silence. Some things deserve your distance. Because your energy is too valuable to be spent on things that do not contribute to your growth. This is where your discipline starts to build. Not the kind that is loud and forced, but the kind that is quiet and consistent. You start doing things even when you don't feel like it. You start showing up for yourself even when no one is watching. You begin to understand that the real battle is not out there. It is within you. It is the battle between who you are now and who you have the potential to become. And every day you make a choice to stay the same or to grow, to be distracted or to be focused, to seek approval or to build value. Redirecting your energy inward also changes how you see others. You stop comparing yourself because you are too busy improving yourself. You stop feeling threatened by other people's success because you understand that your journey is unique. You begin to respect the process, not just for yourself, but for everyone. Because you realize that real growth takes time, effort, and consistency. You also become more selective. Selective with your time, your environment, your conversations. Not because you think you are better than anyone, but because you understand your direction. You cannot afford to surround yourself with constant negativity if you are trying to build a positive life. You cannot afford to engage in meaningless distractions if you are trying to create something meaningful. This is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. There will be days when you slip, when you lose focus, when you feel overwhelmed. But the difference now is that you are aware, and awareness brings you back. You don't stay lost for long because you know where you are going. And as you continue this process, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to build confidence, not from external validation, but from internal progress. You trust yourself more. You believe in your ability to grow, to adapt, to overcome, because you have seen yourself do it day by day, step by step. This is the kind of confidence that cannot be shaken by opinions, because it is not based on what others think. It is based on what you know about yourself. You know your effort. You know your discipline. You know your commitment. And that is powerful. Redirecting your energy inward is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. It is something you choose again and again. In every moment of distraction, in every moment of doubt, in every moment of temptation, you choose to come back to yourself. You choose growth over comfort. You choose purpose over distraction, Chitar. You choose discipline over excuses. And as you continue to make these choices, your life begins to change. Not overnight, not instantly, but steadily. And that steady progress is what builds something real, something lasting. Because at the end of the day, the greatest investment you can ever make is in yourself. Not in how you appear, not in how you are perceived, but in who you are becoming. When you redirect your energy inward, you are not just changing your habits, you are changing your identity. You are becoming someone who takes responsibility, someone who is focused, someone who is intentional. And that is where everything begins to shift. There is a dangerous lie that many people live by, and it sounds harmless at first. It says, I'll start when I feel ready. I'll act when I feel motivated. I'll push when the energy is right. And because of that belief, they remain stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they have made their progress dependent on a feeling that was never designed to be consistent. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls like the tide. Some days you feel powerful, clear, unstoppable. Other days you feel tired, uncertain, distracted. If your progress is tied to that emotional wave, then your life will always move in cycles, starting, stopping, restarting, quitting. But there is another way to live, a higher way, a way that separates those who dream from those who build. And that is the path of discipline. Discipline is not a feeling, it is a decision. It is the ability to act regardless of how you feel. It is choosing to move forward even when your emotions are telling you to stay still. And when you begin to understand this, you break free from one of the greatest limitations most people place on themselves. Because now your life is no longer controlled by your mood, it is controlled by your commitment. You must understand that feelings are real, but they are not reliable. They are temporary signals, not permanent instructions. If you follow them blindly, they will lead you into inconsistency. One day they will push you to work hard. The next day they will convince you to rest when you don't need it. One day they will make you believe in yourself. The next day they will fill you with doubt. That is the nature of emotions. They shift. But discipline does not shift. Discipline stays. And the moment you decide to build your life on discipline instead of motivation, everything changes. Because now action becomes your standard, not your exception. You wake up and you don't ask yourself, do I feel like doing this today? You ask, what must be done today? That single shift in thinking transforms your entire approach to life, because now you are not negotiating with your comfort. You are honoring your purpose. Most people negotiate with themselves every day. They say, I'll do it later. I'll start tomorrow. I just need a little more time. And they repeat this cycle so often that delay becomes their lifestyle. But discipline breaks that pattern. Discipline says, start now. Do what you can. Move forward. And it removes the space where excuses grow. And let's be clear, discipline is not easy. It requires you to go against your natural tendency to seek comfort. It requires you to show up when it's inconvenient, to push when it's uncomfortable, to continue when it's boring. Because not every step of progress is exciting. In fact, most of it is repetitive, quiet, and unnoticed. And that's where most people stop. Not because they can't continue, but because they expected the journey to feel better than it does. But discipline understands something that motivation does not. Results come from repetition, not excitement. The same small actions done consistently create outcomes that look extraordinary over time. But while you are in the process, it doesn't feel extraordinary. It feels normal. It feels routine. And that's why many people underestimate the power of consistency. They are looking for intensity instead of stability. You don't need to be extreme. You need to be consistent. You don't need to do everything at once. You need to do something every day, because consistency compounds. What you do daily builds momentum. And momentum is powerful. It reduces resistance. It makes action easier over time. But the hardest part is always the beginning, when there is no momentum, when everything feels heavy, when every step requires effort. That is where discipline matters the most. Because discipline is what carries you through the early stages when motivation fades. Think about it. Anyone can start when they are excited. Anyone can take action when they feel inspired. But not everyone can continue when the excitement disappears. Not everyone can stay committed when progress is slow, when results are not visible, when no one is watching. And that is the difference. Discipline builds identity. Every time you act despite not feeling like it, you reinforce a powerful message to yourself. I do what I say I will do. And that message builds trust, not with others, but with yourself. And self-trust is one of the most valuable things you can develop. Because when you trust yourself, you stop doubting your ability to follow through. You stop questioning whether you can handle challenges. You know you can, because you have proven it to yourself repeatedly. This is why discipline is not just about results, it is about transformation. It changes how you see yourself. You go from someone who waits to someone who acts, from someone who hesitates to someone who executes, from someone who depends on feelings to someone who leads them. And once that identity is built, it becomes difficult to go back, because you have experienced what it means to be in control. Now understand this, discipline is not about perfection. You will not get everything right. There will be days when you fall short, when you miss a step, when you lose focus. But discipline is not about never failing. It is about never quitting. It is about returning to the path again and again, no matter how many times you step away from it. The danger is not in failing once. The danger is in using failure as a reason to stop completely. Discipline says, get back up, continue. It does not allow temporary setbacks to become permanent excuses. And here is something else you must recognize. Discipline creates freedom. At first, it may feel restrictive. It may feel like you are limiting yourself, forcing yourself, pushing yourself beyond comfort. But over time, you realize that discipline is what gives you control over your life. It frees you from laziness, from distraction, from inconsistency. It gives you the power to choose your direction instead of drifting through circumstances. Because without discipline, you are reactive. You do what feels easy. You follow what is convenient. You move based on external pressure. But with discipline, discipline, you are proactive. You decide your actions. You set your standards. You lead your life intentionally. And that is real freedom, the ability to act according to your purpose, not your impulses. When you master discipline, your days begin to look different. You don't waste time wondering what to do. You already know. You don't get stuck in endless hesitation. You move. You don't rely on external pushes. You create internal drive. Your habits become your foundation. And habits are powerful because they remove the need for constant decision making. You don't debate whether to act. You simply act. And that simplicity creates efficiency. It allows you to focus your energy on growth instead of conflict. But this level of discipline is built over time. It is not something you wake up with. It is something you develop through repetition, through effort, through choosing the harder option when the easier one is available. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen it. Every time you follow through on your commitments, you reinforce it. And over time, what once felt difficult becomes normal. That is the goal, not to make everything easy, but to make discipline your default. And as you continue on this path, something powerful begins to happen. You start to separate yourself from the majority, not because you are more talented, not because you are more gifted, but because you are more consistent. And consistency is rare. Most people are inconsistent. They start strong and fade quickly. They set goals and abandon them. They make promises and break them. But when you master discipline, you become reliable, not just to others, but to yourself. And reliability creates results because success is not built in one moment. It is built in many moments. Small, consistent actions repeated over time lead to outcomes that seem sudden, but are actually the result of long-term effort. And when people see those results, they often think it happened quickly. They see the outcome, but not the process. They see the success, but not the discipline behind it. But you will know. You will know the early mornings, the late nights, the moments when you wanted to stop but didn't. You will know the effort it took to stay consistent when no one was watching. And that knowledge will give you a confidence that cannot be taken away because it is built on truth, not appearance. So master discipline, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Not because it feels good, but because it produces results. Build the ability to act regardless of how you feel. Train yourself to follow through, to stay consistent, to keep going. Because in the end, it is not your motivation that will define your life. It is your discipline. There comes a point in your growth where effort alone is no longer enough. You can be hardworking, determined, even disciplined. But if your focus is constantly broken, your results will always fall short of your potential. This is where the third principle becomes critical, eliminating distractions and protecting your focus. Because focus is not just about what you do, it is about what you allow. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because their attention is scattered. They try to move forward while being pulled in 10 different directions at the same time. Their mind is divided between what matters and what is merely available. And when your attention is divided, your progress is diluted. You must understand this deeply. Whatever has your attention has your life. If your attention is consumed by noise, your life will reflect confusion. If your attention is consumed by comparison, your life will reflect insecurity. If your attention is consumed by distraction, your life will reflect inconsistency. But if your attention is directed toward growth, discipline, and purpose, your life will begin to reflect clarity, strength, and progress. So the real question is not how do I work harder? The real question is, what is stealing my focus? Because distractions are not always obvious. They don't always appear as something negative or harmful. Sometimes they come disguised as comfort, as entertainment, as harmless scrolling, as conversations that go nowhere, as habits that feel normal but produce nothing. And because they don't seem dangerous, you allow them. You entertain them. You give them your time. And slowly they begin to shape your life without you even realizing it. The danger of distraction is not in a single moment. It is in accumulation. A few minutes here, a few minutes there, a delay, a postponement, a loss of of momentum. And over time, these small moments add up into lost days, lost weeks, lost opportunities. You don't lose your future all at once. You lose it in pieces. This is why protecting your focus is not optional. It is essential, because your focus determines your direction and your direction determines your destination. Now, protecting your focus requires intention. It requires you to become aware of what you allow into your space, mentally, emotionally, and physically. You begin to notice what drains you, what distracts you, what pulls you away from your goals. And once you see it clearly, you are faced with a decision: continue allowing it or remove it. And this is where many people struggle, not because they don't know what is distracting them, but because they are attached to it. They are comfortable with it. They have built habits around it, and letting go feels uncomfortable. But growth always requires separation. You cannot keep everything and still expect to move forward. You cannot hold on to distractions and expect to maintain focus. You must be willing to release what is not serving you, even if it feels familiar. This might mean reducing your time on things that consume your attention without adding value. It might mean stepping away from environments that encourage distraction instead of discipline. It might mean limiting conversations that drain your energy instead of building your mindset. And understand this is not about becoming isolated or disconnected from the world. It is about becoming selective. There is a difference. Isolation is avoidance. Selectiveness is intention. You are not running away from people or experiences. You are choosing what aligns with your direction. You are choosing what supports your growth. You are choosing what strengthens your focus, because not everything deserves access to your mind. Your mind is your greatest asset. It is where your ideas are formed, where your decisions are made, where your habits are built. And if you allow anything and everything to enter it, you will lose control over it. But when you guard it, when you protect it, when you are intentional about what you allow, you begin to operate with clarity. Clarity changes everything. When your mind is clear, your decisions become stronger. Your actions become more precise. Your energy becomes more focused. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter because you can see what truly does. But clarity requires space. If your mind is constantly filled with noise, notifications, opinions, distractions, you will never have the space to think deeply, to reflect, to plan. You will always be reacting instead of creating. This is why protecting your focus also means creating moments of stillness. Moments where you disconnect from the noise and reconnect with your purpose. Moments where you think, where you evaluate, where you align yourself with your goals. Because without these moments, you will drift. You will move, but without direction. You will act, but without intention. And over time, you will find yourself busy, but not productive. And there is a difference. Being busy is not the same as being effective. You can fill your day with activity and still make no real progress. But when you are focused, when your actions are aligned with your goals, every step you take moves you forward. Now, protecting your focus also requires discipline, because distractions will not disappear on their own. They will always be available. The question is whether you will engage with them, and that requires self-control. The ability to say no, the ability to delay gratification, the ability to choose what is important over what is immediately appealing. This is not easy, because distractions are designed to be attractive. They offer quick satisfaction, easy pleasure, instant engagement, but they do not offer long-term value. And if you are not careful, you will trade your future for temporary comfort. But when you understand your purpose, when you are clear about your direction, it becomes easier to say no. Not because the distractions are less appealing, but because your goals are more important. You begin to see every choice as an investment. Every action either moves you closer to your goals or further away from them. And that awareness changes how you spend your time. You stop asking, what do I feel like doing? And start asking, what will move me forward? That is focus. And as you continue to protect your focus, something powerful begins to happen. You gain momentum. Because when your attention is not constantly interrupted, your progress becomes faster. Your efforts become more effective. Your results become more consistent. You begin to enter a state where your work flows, where your mind is engaged, where your energy is directed. And in that state, you produce at a higher level. This is where growth accelerates. But it only happens when distractions are minimized and focus is protected. And here is something else you must understand. Your environment matters. The people around you, the spaces you spend time in, the conversations you engage in, they all influence your focus. If you are surrounded by people who are constantly distracted, it will be harder for you to stay focused. If you are in environments that encourage laziness, it will be harder for you to stay disciplined. But when you place yourself in environments that support growth, that encourage focus, that challenge you to improve, it becomes easier to stay aligned. This does not mean you need to cut everyone off. It means you need to be aware of influence. You need to recognize what is helping you and what is holding you back. Because influence is subtle. It does not always announce itself. But over time, it shapes your behavior, your mindset, your habits. So be intentional. Choose your environment. Choose your inputs. Choose your focus. Because in the end, your life will reflect what you consistently give your attention to. And if you want to grow, if you want to become better, if you want to achieve something meaningful, you must protect your focus like it is your most valuable asset. Because it is. Eliminate what distracts you. Guard what builds you. Stay aligned with your purpose. And as you do this, you will begin to experience a level of clarity, productivity, and progress that most people never reach. Not because they couldn't, but because they never protected what mattered most. Your focus. There is a quiet power in becoming someone who no longer feels the need to announce their intentions. In a world where everyone is eager to declare what they are about to do, there is something rare, almost intimidating, about the person who simply does the work and lets the results speak. This is the essence of the fourth principle: let results make the noise. Most people are addicted to the idea of being seen trying rather than being seen succeeding. They talk about their plans, they share their goals, they broadcast their ambitions, and in doing so, they receive a temporary sense of satisfaction. It feels like progress, but it is not. It is recognition without results. It is applause without achievement. And over time, this habit becomes dangerous because it tricks the mind into believing that speaking is equivalent to doing. But reality does not respond to what you say. It responds to what you do. You must understand this clearly. The world does not reward intention. It rewards execution. It does not celebrate potential. It celebrates performance. You may have great ideas, powerful dreams, and strong desires, but until they are backed by consistent action, they remain invisible in the real world. And this is where many people lose their edge. They talk too much and build too little. They seek validation before they have created value. They want to be acknowledged for what they plan to become instead of what they have actually built. But when you decide to let results make the noise, you shift your entire approach. You move from external expression to internal execution. You stop focusing on being seen and start focusing on becoming. This requires restraint. It requires you to hold your vision without constantly sharing it. It requires you to work on your goals without seeking immediate recognition. It requires you to be comfortable with silence because real growth often happens in silence. There will be no applause in the early stages. No one will celebrate your consistency when it is still small. No one will notice your discipline when the results are not yet visible. And that is where your commitment is tested. Because if you are driven by validation, you will struggle in this phase. You will feel unseen, unappreciated, overlooked. You will be tempted to speak, to announce, to seek acknowledgement. But if you are driven by purpose, you will understand that this phase is necessary. You will embrace the silence because you know it is building something real. And this is where your character is formed. Working in silence forces you to develop internal motivation. You are no longer dependent on external praise to keep going. You are no longer waiting for someone to notice your effort. You continue because you have decided to continue, because your goals matter, because your growth matters. This is where discipline and focus come together. You wake up and do the work, not because someone is watching, but because it needs to be done. You push forward, not because it is exciting, but because it is necessary. You stay consistent, not because it is easy, but because it is aligned with who you are becoming. And slowly, quietly, your efforts begin to accumulate. Day by day, your habits strengthen. Your skills improve. Your mindset sharpens. Your discipline deepens. But from the outside, it may not look like much. People may still see you as the same person. They may not recognize the changes happening beneath the surface. And that is okay. Because real growth is not always visible in the beginning. It is like building a foundation. You don't see it, but it supports everything that comes after. And then, over time, something begins to shift. The results start to show. Not all at once, not dramatically, but noticeably. Your work begins to reflect your effort. Your progress becomes visible. Your consistency starts to produce outcomes that cannot be ignored. And this is where the noise begins, but it is not coming from you. It is coming from your results. People start to notice, they start to ask questions. They start to wonder how you changed, how you improved, how you achieved what you have achieved. And the same people who did not pay attention in the beginning are now paying attention at the end. That is the power of silent work. Because when you let results make the noise, your success speaks with authority. It does not need explanation. It does not need justification. It stands on its own. And there is a different kind of respect that comes with that. Not the temporary attention that comes from talking, but the lasting recognition that comes from doing. But understand this is not about impressing others. That is not the goal. The goal is to build something real. The attention is just a byproduct. If your focus is on shocking people, you will lose direction, because you will start making decisions based on how they will be perceived instead of how they will contribute to your growth. But when your focus is on becoming better, on building discipline, on creating value, the results will naturally follow. And when they do, they will carry more weight than anything you could have said. Now, letting results make the noise also protects your energy. When you talk too much about your plans, you expose them to opinions, doubts, and unnecessary feedback. People may question you, criticize you, or project their own limitations onto you. And if you are not careful, that external noise can affect your internal confidence. But when you keep your work private, when you focus on execution instead of explanation, you protect your vision. You give it space to grow without interference. You allow your actions to develop without being influenced by external pressure. This does not mean you never share anything. It means you are intentional about what you share and when you share it. You share results, not just ideas. You share progress, not just plans. You share from a place of completion, not just intention. Because there is a difference between talking about what you are going to do and showing what you have done. One is potential. The other is proof. And proof carries power because it cannot be debated. It cannot be dismissed. It is real. And as you continue to build in silence, you will notice something else. You become more focused because you are not dividing your energy between doing the work and talking about the work. You are fully invested in execution. Your attention is directed toward progress, not perception. This allows you to move faster, to improve more, to stay aligned with your goals. And over time, this becomes your identity. You become someone who acts more than they speak, someone who produces more than they promise, someone who delivers results instead of explanations. And that identity is powerful because in a world full of noise, clarity stands out. In a world full of talkers, doers are rare. In a world full of announcements, results are undeniable. So you keep building quietly, consistently, intentionally. You let your work speak for you. You let your discipline show through your actions. You let your progress tell your story. And when the time comes, when the results are visible, when the transformation is clear, you won't need to say much because your life will say it for you. And that is the kind of success that lasts. Not loud, not temporary, not dependent on attention, but solid, real, and undeniable. So resist the urge to announce. Resist the need to be seen before you are ready. Focus on becoming, on building, on executing, and let your results make the noise.